Hello, Content Strategy Collective. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Jamie Indigo. I'm a Senior Technical SEO with Deep Crawl, and today we're going to do a hands-on look at Web Core Vitals and how we're measuring performance in human-centric metrics. Let's dive in. For all of the talk you've heard, for all of the hype, all of the worry, fret, buzzwords, articles published every which way, the battlefield for Core Vitals comes down to about 360 by 640 pixels. Core Vitals are designed to measure how long it takes for a user to see and interact with content above the fold. Really quite a simple formula. We have a user, we have a screen, and we have some content. Unfortunately, it's a much more complicated execution. We think it's going to be pretty easy. We're just trying to paint a bit of content on the page and call it a day. In actuality, how we build those components, the orders we construct them in, how we execute them, it ends up being a little bit more like this, like a long page full of wonderful content. What you're going to learn today is not going to be anything you can execute alone. Core Vitals are collaborative. There's some cooperative magic that involve dev, UX, search engines, products, all overlapping into SEO. Because, well, real humans want good experiences. And 8 seconds. 8 seconds is how long you have for a user's attention on a single screen. That's how long you have to load your content to get them to complete interaction, to get them to move forward. So our goal today is to meet the metrics, get hands-on, and go through a workflow designed to help you diagnose and improve core vitals. All right, let's start off everything with an important caveat. In the spirit of it depends, it's important to know the difference between lab and field data. Field data is performance data collected from real humans, real users on your site interacting with it. It's also known as real user monitoring. Lab data is like what you'll run in Lighthouse, like what you run on your local tests, and it's emulated data. It's a test in a petri dish. It's got controlled environments and predefined networks and settings. They're often different. Well, which one should you use? Field data is fundamentally the source of truth. It comes from the Chrome User Experience Report, and it's what's being used in the Page Experience Update. The Chrome User Experience Report is aggregated from those real humans. It's updated the second Tuesday of every month, and it calculates how real humans interacted with that page. So for a human to be in the Crux report, they have to meet 3 criteria. So to be opted into syncing with their browser history, they have not set up a sync passphrase, and they have user statistics reporting enabled. Not every human interacting with your site will qualify for this, but quite a few will. Which one should you use when you're trying to identify if there's truly a problem on your site? Field data, that crux data, that source of truth. Well, what should you use when you're trying to diagnose and improve on an issue? Lab data. Lab data is a lot more granular. It lets us see a little bit further down the rabbit hole and get insights into what's going on. Let's meet these metrics. Core Vitals fundamentally consists of 3 metrics. We have largest contentful paint. This measures the loading experience. Can my thumb stop hovering on that back button? Interactivity is measured by a first input delay. If I'm on an e-commerce site, my page is loaded, I see visual cues. Can I tap add to cart, or is a notification going to take my attention away? And visual stability. Visual stability is the metric called how likely am I to rage quit your site? It's bouncing all over the place, probably pretty likely. It measures visual stability, but they're all human-centric. We used to define performance in a lot of really abstract ways with the DOM content loaded, how, well, no, it doesn't really matter how we used to measure it because when we came to like, downloaded as being our answer, we started hole punching. We started finding ways to meet that goal without considering the human aspect. And all of Core Vitals is about the human-centric version. First metric we're going to look more deeply into is largest contentful pain. And of course, this represents perceived loading experience. And it's measured by the node. So if you have You have a site and you've got a couple of page templates. You've got a blog template. Chances are the LCP node, the element on the page representing the largest contentful paint, will be consistent across them. Uh, it's calculated at the point in the page timeline where the largest image or text block is visible in that viewport. Our goal is to have the largest contentful paint achieved in under 2.5 seconds. That'll give us that fast experience. And with any of these metrics, our goal is to have 75% of users in the Chrome user experience report have a good experience. If we hit 75% good, we've passed the core vital assessment for that. Conversely, if we hit 25% poor, that is an auto fail. So what can be an LCP? Text blocks, images, video posters. We can also have URL, CSS background images. In the future, we could expect to see elements like SVGs and videos included in here. And if we try and figure out what causes slowest contentful, largest contentful paint, typically 4 causes. Slow server response times, render blocking JavaScript and CSS, slow resource load times, and client-side rendering. Full stop, that's it. If you were doing client-side rendering, chances are you've got a slow LCP. It's just how it goes. So, there can be 4 reasons, and those are pretty big and ambiguous. How do you tell what the node is? And more importantly, how do you tell how to fix it? Well, meet DevTools. This lovely beastie is built into all of your Chrome browsers. You simply have to turn it on. And when we open a page, we can go ahead, right-click, inspect, and go into DevTools. It's important to do this in a incognito browser, or if you have a testing profile that you frequently dump the cache and cookies from, also your friend. When we set this up, we want to emulate a mobile device. If you click on the little phone icon up there, you can choose what kind of device you want to use. You can also be responsive. I recommend going with the Moto 3G option that lets you use something very similar to what Googlebot is using for its initial viewport. Under our network conditions, we can also go ahead and choose to emulate a 3G network. This is optional, but it'll help us improve our accuracy. Now we're going to go ahead and record our performance. Great news. Core Vitals is across all of the Google products. Everyone has this beautiful vested interest in it together, which means they built into DevTools a panel to help you capture Core Vitals. So go to the performance panel, refresh the browser, wait for it to load, and click record. What we're going to get out of here is quite beautiful. It's a report designed to show us on a timeline, a waterfall of the scripts executing, of the resources being delivered, how our page performed, what our key nodes were, and give us really good detail. In the performance report, we have information like the resource type, so I can know what element was my LCP. I can know its size. I can know all about the resources. On that timings bar right there, you'll see there's a little node that actually says LCP. And when I click on that, I get the type, size, timestamp, when it occurred in the waterfall, as well as related node. This related node is very useful because, again, if it's following a page template, we fix this in one place, we can fix this in many beautiful places. First input delay is our next metric. This is designed to measure that responsiveness to a user's input. And it's the measurement from how long it takes me to tap and interact with something for the browser to respond with it. It's important to note right here that first input delay is only available as field data, which means we will only see it in places like the Crux report and reports that use that data source. Our goal is to have the FID be in under 100 milliseconds. We have 75% of our users reaching that goal. We will have a performant page that passes the first input delay assessment. It's a way of measuring the main thread activity. So the next billion users who are coming onto the internet, they're not on desktops. They don't have fiber connections. They're typically running on a mid-range device, mobile device, that's usually about $100. It's not very expensive, but it doesn't handle all of our ads and pop-ups and scripts in the same way that your very powerful desktop and your very powerful Wi-Fi or connected networks do. When we do our lab tests, knowing that first input delay is only available as field data, use total blocking time. So there is no FID in lab data, but total blocking time is the closest substitute. It's the best proxy. And what it does is it measures every task that takes longer than 50 milliseconds. Ideally, our scripts should execute in these nice little chunks that take 50 milliseconds. Anytime over 50 is considered blocking time. So if my task takes 70 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds of that is blocking time. You can see they have two different thresholds for their color codings, but they line up very quickly. So what interactions could count as a first input delay? Clicks, of course, inputting text into fields, check boxes, radio buttons, links, drop downs. If we use key down, key up, mouse down, pointer down with a caveat to it. These are all ways that I can interact with a page and also be stuck waiting for a bunch of scripts to execute before the browser can respond to what I've asked for. So what causes a slow first input delay? JavaScript. That's it. That's what I said. It is always, without fail, the amount of scripts that you are shipping. How do we use that performance report to make it better? Well, any one of those under the main bar in this waterfall, any one of these tasks that has a red marker in the upper right-hand corner, then it gives us a long task. And it'll tell us how long it was. When we see this, this is a chance for you to work with your developers and break that task down. Make it smaller, make it only what it needs to be. And we can actually see for the total page, the blocking time of the page. So down there at the bottom, I've got this red box up here, you can see total blocking time, 300.99 milliseconds. It gives you the total of all of them added together so you don't have to sit there and manually math. Last up, cumulative layout shift. This is our am I going to rage quit your page. Represents the visual stability. And this one is unique because it's not a time base, instead it's the calculated metric. It's rather than being by template, typically by an element. So a repeated element like your cookie banner. If you see a bunch of pages that don't seem to have anything in common, there's probably an element that's used across them. So our goal is to have this calculated score be under 0.1, and that's going to give us that fast, good experience. And when it comes to measuring this, any element in the initial viewport is part of this. How far that element moves, how many times it moves, those are all added together for the accumulation of your layout scoring. What counts as it? If an element loads in the initial viewport, it has entered the combat arena. If you are loading your header and your footer is now calculated every time it moves. Also, please stop doing that. It's not a good user experience. What causes a high cumulative layout shift? Typically, it's ads without dimensions, or images without dimensions, ads, embeds, fonts. If you are using 12 fonts on your page, please stop. No one actually wants to see that. It looks like a ransom note. If you are using fonts, because they're very important to your branding, go ahead and preload those or do a font optional. Actually, preload and font optional together do really well. Talk to your UX team. They know what those words mean. It'll be fine. Using document.write, that causes a bad time. Things shift all over the place. Stop doing that in general. So we can see all the good details about our cumulative layout shift in the performance report under this row named experience. We can see there are red blocks, and that actually denotes each time we see a layout shift. It'll highlight for us in DevTools what the element that moved was and show us where it moved from and to. And sometimes you'll see many, many instances of it jumping. Remember, each time that it jumps, that counts towards your cumulative layout shift. You get this really good detailed summary. I don't expect most folks who are watching this right now to understand the nuances of the UX involved here, but your UX team is going to be excited that you've prioritized making the site more visually stable for users. Let's hop into that workflow. So we have a good understanding of how these metrics work. They're important to us. They are important to users. How do we take that and actually do something with it? Let's start with Search Console's Web Core Vitals report. Focus on the mobile data because Google's moving towards that mobile first index. More importantly, page experience update is out. That's impacting mobile SERPs, and it's based on mobile data. Google announced at I/O that yes, we will see Core Vitals coming for desktop, but they are not out yet. And frankly, they're going to be more forgiving. So focus on mobile. And if you've got a site that's designed mobile first, you're actually going to make desktop better in the process. Once you've copied into the mobile Core Vital details, you can see that correct data is actually aggregated here. So important note, Search Console is using correct data, that source of truth. And they've aggregated them together into patterns, into groupings of URLs that seem to have the same behavior patterns and issues. So when we click on any one of these, we get a bunch of example URLs. We want to go ahead and save these. We're going to prioritize which groups to work on by what is impacted the most. Do we have 300,000 URLs that are average needs improvement and we could boost them up into the good range? Let's do that. Are we at 25% auto fail? Let's go ahead and work on those. We want to grab our grouping we're going to focus on one at a time, please. Select all those URLs out, and we're going to use them throughout this process. So now that we have the grouping, we have the one area we're going to focus on. In my example earlier, I believe it was a core LCP. We got the 20 URLs associated with it. Now I'm going to go over to PageSpeed Insights to marry lab and field data together. So PageSpeed Insights is the only tool that you can really get URL level data on. We have correct data available through the dashboard, through BigQuery. Those are all the origin level. When we use PageSpeed Insights or the PageSpeed Insights API, we can get URL level information. This is beautiful. It marries them together. And if we use PageSpeed Insights, the web page tool itself, we actually get these great opportunities in diagnostics. It's powered by Chrome UX Support. It's powered by Lighthouse, married all together. And if you look up at the top there on this right-hand side, you'll see you can filter these audits to the specific core vital that you're trying to work with. This is very useful information. Write it all down, keep it in that spreadsheet. Test multiple URLs, very important. One URL, remember lab data is a one-off, so get a bunch of them together. Aggregate them, select them. We can actually keep using these data as a before and after, as a pre-post to show the value of our investments and performance to our team and get further initiatives approved. So if your page doesn't have field data, it's okay. That's why we grabbed all 20 of those example URLs. Testing up other ones, you'll be good. We actually now have this really lovely thing where we have partial data. So if there's only one metric missing, don't worry about it. We now have partial data available from PageSpeed Insights. If you still had that no data available, well, there's a threshold of the minimum number of hits that page has to have, experiences reported on, in order to keep the users anonymous. That's okay. You have multiple examples to work with. Step 3 in this great bucket of workflow, create a ticket and do the work. What's a ticket, you may ask? I hear all of you marketers going, but I do that. But do you? Tickets are important. I have a background as a product owner. And let me tell you, if you put a ticket in there that was website broke, please help, I got to get rid of a ticket out of my backlog. Product's job is to go ahead and manage and prioritize these. So if you submit your tickets through Jira, through Basecamp, however you manage those development cycles, include a user story, acceptance criteria, and testing URLs and strategy. Our user story is pretty simple. As a blank, I want to blank in order to blank. So if I'm working on the LCP, I can say, as a performance site, I want to prioritize prioritize loading this node in order to achieve a performant LCP. My acceptance criteria is so important because it defines what done means. What defines this task being completed? And testing URLs and strategy, that's for QA. When this is in a lower environment, how do I make sure that task was completed? Very useful. Use that group of URLs that we had earlier, include them in here. Provide steps. Think about what tools you use, what metrics to look for, and behaviors that indicate a pass or fail. Everybody wants to do good work. When you submit a ticket that has all these details, we know what good means. All right, last step up here. I need you to QA changes in staging environments using Lighthouse. Be part of the QA process. Don't lob it over and then go, well, I told them to do it. No, we're in this together. This is cooperative magic. Work with your QA team. Test locally in the lower environments. Keep in mind that QAT, a lower environment before it goes to production, typically has less resources. So it'll probably seem less performant. That's why I went through all this detail showing you how to look at it in DevTools. Pay attention to those metrics. They are your friend. When you don't know, talk to your staging, or talk to your QA engineers. They want to help you. They all want to do good work. So if you're looking for more ideas on how to make your site better, So just use web.dev. Web.dev is fantastic because you can actually record over time how that page is performing. Webpagetest.org, another fantastic tool that will actually show you a visual of each step of that page rendering. You can see what loaded when and where. If you're casually checking while you're looking around, you can use a Web Vitals extension by Adios Mani. He's part of the crew that works on PageSpeed Insights, on Crux, on Web Core Vitals. Alternatively, I love this one. If you're trying to show someone what their issue is, there's this really great extension by Defaced Chris Johnson that will capture a GIF of how the page is loading. In addition to that, he's actually made a Chrome extension to show you in SERP the different Web Core Vitals for the pages presented. So remember, Web Core Vitals probably aren't going to be mobile get-in for you. This isn't mobile get-in 5.7 or whatever we're around right now, but it will be a tiebreaker. So know your niche, know who you're going up against. The key takeaway for this talk is Core Vitals is about loading what matters when it matters. We want to make an experience that prioritizes the user, not 5 megs of advertising pixels. We all want to do good things. Don't be afraid to learn in public. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of this fantastic event. And I hope even more that we get to see each other soon in real life. Thank you all.